I still remember the day my father looked me in the eye and said, "College isn't for everyone, Lauren. Especially not for girls who should be learning how to build a home, not a resume." I was standing in our kitchen, clutching my university acceptance letter with trembling hands. The paper felt like gold in mine, but in his eyes, it was worthless. In that moment, something inside me cracked, not my spirit, but my trust. I watched the man I'd looked up to all my life turn his back on my future. And that's when I decided, if he refused to invest in my education, I'd make sure one day his entire retirement would depend on me. I didn't know how or when, but I knew it would happen. What would you do if your own father refused to fund your dreams and tossed your acceptance letter in the trash? Tell me below. Would you fight, forgive, or walk away? Don't forget to like and subscribe. Before everything fell apart, my life was simple, small-town quiet, filled with part-time jobs, late-night study sessions, and big dreams. I was Lauren Tate, a straight-A senior from Dayton, Ohio, raised by a father who believed hard work meant following his rules, not your heart. My dad, Martin Tate, ran a small construction business. To the world, he was respected, a man of grit, discipline, and old-school values. But at home, his approval came with conditions. "You want something, you earn it," he'd always say. I did every honor, every scholarship essay, every sleepless night at the library. My mom, Evelyn, was the quiet glue holding us together. She'd whisper encouragement when Dad wasn't listening, promising that he'd come around once he saw how serious I was. Then came the day my dream letter arrived, acceptance to Lakewood University, my first choice. I remember running to him, the envelope half opened, tears of joy in my eyes. He didn't even look at it before saying, "You think I'm paying 50 grand so you can study communication? You'll just end up working for someone smarter." The words hit harder than a slap. I tried to argue, begged him to reconsider, but he just laughed. "Life's the best teacher, Lauren. Let it teach you." That day, I realized he never planned to help me. He didn't want to see me rise, he wanted to keep control. And as I watched him toss that letter aside, something inside me whispered, never give him that power again. The weeks that followed felt like slow-motion heartbreak. While my friends posted photos of college dorms and move-in days, I was scrubbing tables at Clyde's Diner, smelling like coffee and burnt toast. I'd smile for customers, then cry in the restroom between shifts. Every paycheck went into a jar labeled "someday." Mom tried to help. She'd slip $20 bills into my lunch bag, whispering, "Don't tell your dad." But it was never enough for tuition. Meanwhile, Dad spent weekends at poker nights, bragging about teaching his daughter responsibility. Each time I saw his new fishing gear or heard about another barbecue at the lake, my chest tightened. It wasn't about the money anymore. It was the message. You're not worth investing in. At night, I'd stare at the ceiling, replaying his words over and over. You'll just end up working for someone smarter. That line became my fuel. I worked double shifts, enrolled in community college with financial aid, and studied business in borrowed textbooks. I barely slept, but I was learning something he never taught me, how to survive without him. There were days I wanted to quit. I'd see my coworkers gossiping about college parties and feel the sting of missing out. But every time I almost broke, I'd remember his face that day, that smug, careless smirk, and my exhaustion turned into fire. I promised myself I'd build a life so stable, so powerful, that the man who dismissed me would one day depend on me. Not for revenge, but for closure, for balance. That pain, his rejection, became my degree. And every late night, every sacrifice, felt like another class in self-worth. Years passed, and the world started seeing what my father never did. By 26, I had climbed from waitress to operations manager at a growing logistics company. I studied online, earned my business degree at night, and never once asked my dad for a dime. Every success was my quiet rebellion. When he called, I kept our conversations polite but distant. He'd brag about his company's success and the freedom of self-employment, never once asking how I was doing. I didn't mind. Silence had become my protection. But then, Small cracks started appearing in his perfect world. His construction business hit a rough patch. Clients left, payments delayed, and one bad investment snowballed into debt. Mom told me quietly that he'd cashed out part of his retirement fund to keep things afloat. I remember thinking, interesting. The man who refused to invest in me is running out of things to invest in himself. It wasn't revenge yet, but the universe was definitely taking notes. By the time I turned 32, my life looked nothing like the one my father predicted. I was the founder and CEO of Tate Logistics, a company I'd built from scratch. Ironically, our biggest acquisition target that year was a failing construction supplier in Ohio, the same one that used to provide materials to Tate Construction, my father's company. When I saw the paperwork, my breath caught. The name at the top, Martin Tate. My father's company. The business, he once bragged, would outlast every fancy degree. I signed the acquisition deal myself. Quietly. Cleanly. No mercy, no gloating, just business. A week later, he called me for the first time in years. His voice trembled. Lauren, I heard your company bought mine. I didn't realize it was you. I smiled, though he couldn't see it. Well, Dad, looks like your student finally learned a thing or two. He hesitated. I could use some help. The bank took the house. Your mom's staying with her sister. I leaned back in my office chair, the skyline glowing behind me. You know, you once told me life's the best teacher. I guess it's teaching you now. A long silence followed. For the first time, I heard regret in his voice. But I didn't hang up. I couldn't. Instead, I offered him a modest retirement arrangement, an apartment, monthly allowance, and medical coverage. All under my company's name. He accepted quietly, probably too ashamed to refuse. And just like that, the roles reversed. The man who wouldn't pay for my education now lived on my payroll. It wasn't cruelty. It was justice. Poetic, precise, and deeply satisfying. When I first wired that first retirement payment to his account, I didn't feel triumphant. I felt quiet. Not the silence of victory, the silence of closure. For years, I'd imagined how it would feel to see him brought low, to hear him apologize, maybe even beg. But when the moment came, there was no need for that. The real power wasn't in his regret, it was in my peace. He used to say, money builds character. Maybe he was right, because the money I earned, without his help, without his faith, built mine. I visit him sometimes at the senior complex I pay for. He's slower now, softer. Sometimes he tries to talk about the past, but I don't let him. The past already served its sentence. Instead, I just listen. He knows I'm his lifeline now, and I think that's punishment enough. But revenge, I learned, doesn't always have to be cruel. Sometimes it's just reclaiming what was taken, your worth, your dignity, your voice. He once refused to invest in me. Now, every comfort he enjoys has my name on it. And yet, I'm not bitter anymore. Because my success isn't about proving him wrong, it's about proving myself right. In the end, I didn't destroy him. I simply outgrew him. These days, my life feels like the version I used to dream about while wiping counters at Clyde's Diner. I own a house overlooking the city's skyline, travel for business, and mentor young women who remind me of that scared, determined girl I once was. Every morning, I look in the mirror and see strength where there used to be doubt. My success isn't flashy, it's steady, built from late nights, heartbreak, and the stubborn belief that I deserved better than what I was given. Dad lives comfortably now in a retirement apartment that my company funds entirely. The staff knows to treat him well, not because he deserves it, but because I do. Sometimes I visit, bringing him coffee just the way he likes it. We sit in silence, and I can see the weight of realization in his eyes. He doesn't have to say the words, "I'm sorry." I already hear them in his tone, in the way he lowers his head when I mention work. Mom calls me every week, always proud, always emotional. She says I turned pain into purpose. And maybe she's right. Because helping others, building something of my own, that became my real revenge. The power shift is complete, not because I took everything from him, but because he no longer has anything left to take from me. I finally have what I always wanted, not his approval, but my freedom. Looking back now, I realize revenge isn't always about hurting the person who wronged you. Sometimes it's about rising so high that their opinion no longer matters. My dad once said I'd regret chasing dreams that didn't have his approval. He was half right. I did regret something. I regretted ever believing I needed his permission to shine. If there's one thing my story taught me, it's this. Sometimes revenge isn't about breaking them, it's about finding yourself again. So tell me, if your own parent had turned their back on your dreams, would you forgive them or make them face your success? Comment below, and don't forget to subscribe.